This was not unusual. Do-yun was late for most things. He worked at a small accounting firm in Seoul, the kind of place where the lights buzzed too loud and the coffee tasted like sadness. He was 28 years old, single, and tired in a way that sleep could not fix. Today, his mother had sent him 17 text messages about dinner. She wanted to know if he was eating properly. She wanted to know if he had met any nice girls. She wanted to know why he never called. Do-yun typed responses while walking, his eyes glued to his phone screen. He did not notice the crowds. He did not notice the police barriers. He did not notice the massive silver ship hovering over Gwanghwamun Square, or the alien delegation that had just stepped onto Earth for the first time in human history. Do-yun noticed none of this because he was trying to explain to his mother that, no, he could not come to dinner on Saturday, he had to work overtime again, and yes, he knew she worried, and no, he was not too skinny, and yes, he would try to eat more vegetables. The Valari had arrived 3 days ago. Their empire spanned 10,000 worlds. They lived for thousands of years. They could bend space and time with their minds. They had technology that humans could not begin to understand. And right now their third princess was walking through the square, surrounded by guards, while thousands of humans watched in awe. Princess Ilyana of House Stellara was tall, almost 7 feet, with skin like polished silver and eyes like purple stars. Her hair flowed behind her like liquid moonlight. She wore robes that seemed to be made of woven light itself. She was beautiful in the way that storms are beautiful, or mountains, or the vast empty darkness between galaxies. She was also directly in Do-yun's path. A security drone above the crowd made a strange sound. Then another. Then all of them at once. Something had gone wrong with their systems. The drones began spinning wildly, crashing into each other, falling toward the crowd below. People screamed. People ran. People pushed. Do-yun looked up from his phone just in time to see a drone falling toward his head. He jumped backward, tripped over a barrier he had not seen, and flew forward with his arms spinning like a broken windmill. He crashed into something soft, his face pressed against something warm. Time stopped. Not in the poetic sense. Time actually stopped. The falling drones froze in the air. The screaming people became statues. A bird hung motionless above, its wings spread wide. Even the clouds stopped moving. Do-yun could still move. So could the person he had crashed into. He looked up. Purple eyes stared down at him with an expression he could not read. He looked at where his face had been. His face had been pressed directly against the chest of the most important alien to ever visit Earth. Do-yun made a sound like a dying animal and threw himself backward. He fell on his rear and scrambled away on his hands and feet like a crab trying to escape a cooking pot. Time resumed. The drones crashed. The people screamed, and 7 massive Valari guards appeared around Do-yun in an instant. Their weapons pointed at his head. The weapons glowed with a light that hurt to look at. One guard spoke in a voice like grinding stones. "You have touched royalty without permission. The punishment is death." Do-yun's brain stopped working. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to explain that it was an accident, that he had not meant to, that he was just a tired accountant who wanted to eat lunch and go back to his sad little desk in his sad little office. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry about your chest." The guards looked at each other. Princess Ilyana made a sound. It took Do-yun a moment to realize she was laughing. It was a strange laugh, musical but cold, like wind chimes in a frozen garden. "He apologizes for my chest," she said. Her voice was deep and smooth with an accent that made every word sound important. "How interesting." "Your Highness," the head guard said, "this creature must be executed. The law is clear." "The law is mine to interpret," the princess replied. She stepped closer to Do-yun and looked down at him like a scientist examining a strange bug. "What is your name, human?" "Pete Park Do-yun." "Park Do-yun." She said it slowly, as if tasting the words. "Why were you not watching where you walked?" "I was—" Do-yun swallowed. "I was texting my mother." Another laugh. "Your mother? You were contacting your parent while walking into a royal delegation. She worries about me." "Does she?" "Yes. She thinks I don't eat enough vegetables." The princess studied him for a long moment. The crowd around them had gone silent. Cameras from 100 news drones were pointed at them. The whole world was watching a tired accountant sit on the ground and talk about vegetables with an alien princess. "I will not execute you," Princess Ilyana announced. Doyun felt relief flood through his body like warm water. "Instead," she continued, "I invoke the right of claim service. You will serve as my personal attendant until I decide you have repaid your offense. Your life belongs to me now." The relief turned to ice. What? You heard me." The princess turned to her guards. "Take him to the ship. Clean him. Dress him properly. I want him ready to serve by evening." Two guards grabbed Dohyun under his arms and lifted him like he weighed nothing. His phone fell from his hand and cracked on the ground. On the screen, his mother's latest message glowed. "Are you eating lunch? Don't skip meals." Dohyun was carried away from everything he knew. His job, his apartment, his life. All of it gone in an instant because he had been looking at his phone instead of watching where he walked. The last thing he saw before they took him into the ship was his own face on a giant news screen. The headline below read, "Human Assaults Alien Princess, Fate Unknown." Dohyun closed his eyes. This was definitely worse than being late for lunch. High above Earth, the Valari ship waited like a silver moon. Inside, 1,000 aliens went about their business, unaware that a small, tired human was about to change everything. Princess Ilyana watched the human being carried away. Her assistant, a thin Valari named Chorus, approached her carefully. "Your Highness, was that wise? The human is clearly defective. He could not even walk properly." "Perhaps," Ilyana said. "But did you see his eyes?" "His eyes, Your Highness?" "When my guards pointed their weapons at him, when he knew he was going to die." Ilyana smiled, and it was not a warm smile. He was afraid, but he was also angry, like a small animal that knows it cannot win but refuses to surrender. "Humans are primitive creatures, Your Highness. They are barely evolved." "Yes," Ilyana agreed. "That is what makes them interesting." She turned and walked toward her ship, her robes flowing behind her like wings. Park Do-hyun's ordinary life had ended. Something else was about to begin. Do-hyun learned this on his first day, when he got lost trying to find the princess's chambers, and walked for 3 hours before a guard found him crying in a storage room. The guard had laughed at him. Everyone laughed at him here. 1 week had passed since the incident in Seoul. 1 week since Do-hyun had touched a princess's chest and lost everything. 1 week of learning that humans were considered the lowest form of intelligent life in the galaxy. The Valari lived for thousands of years. Humans lived for maybe 80 if they were lucky. The Valari could move objects with their minds. Humans could not. The Valari had 5 fingers on each hand, like humans, but they considered this a sign of evolution. When they looked at human hands, they saw primitive copies. "Look at its fingers," a Valari noble said one morning, grabbing Do-hyun's hand and showing it to his friends. "So short, so clumsy. How do they build anything with these?" The nobles laughed. Do-hyun said nothing. He had learned quickly that speaking only made things worse. His job was simple. He woke before the princess. He prepared her morning tea. He stood behind her during meals. He carried her things. He did whatever she told him to do, whenever she told him to do it. The princess herself was strange. She barely spoke to him. She watched him constantly, like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Sometimes she gave him impossible tasks just to see what he would do. "Bring me a flower from the garden," she said one evening. "Which garden, Your Highness?" "The garden. You will know it when you find it." Do-hyun searched for 6 hours. The ship had 17 gardens. He brought flowers from each one. The princess rejected all of them. "The flower I want does not exist yet," she finally told him. "I wanted to see if you would give up." "I don't understand." "No, you don't." She dismissed him with a wave of her hand. Do-hyun went back to his tiny room, which was actually a closet, and lay on his thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his mother. He thought about his old desk. He thought about the cup of coffee he would never drink again. He did not cry. He had cried enough in the first 3 days. Now he just felt empty. The worst part was Lord Kavros. Kavros was a high noble, a cousin of some important family, with silver skin that was almost white and eyes that were completely black. He hated humans. He made this very clear from the first moment he saw Do-hyun. "Why is this animal in the dining hall?" Kavros had asked loudly, even though Do-yun was standing right there. It smells like death and short lives. The other nobles had laughed. Kavros made it his personal mission to make Do-yun's life miserable. He tripped him in hallways. He accidentally knocked things from his hands. He spoke about humans like they were insects, always making sure Do-yun could hear. One day during a formal dinner, Kavros called Do-yun over. "Human, bring me more tea." Do-yun brought the tea. As he poured, Kavros tilted the cup. Boiling liquid spilled across Do-hyun's arm. The pain was incredible. Do-hyun gasped but did not scream. He would not give Kavros that satisfaction. "Clumsy creature," Kavros said, smiling. "Clean this up." Do-hyun cleaned the tea. He cleaned the cup. He bowed and stepped away. His arm was bright red, blistering already. He would have a scar. But while cleaning, Do-hyun noticed something. A ring had fallen from Kavros's pocket, a simple silver band with a strange symbol. Do-hyun picked it up quietly and slipped it into his own pocket. That night, Do-hyun did some research. The ship had a library, and humans were not forbidden from using it. He learned that the symbol on the ring belonged to House Vethros, a minor noble family known for one thing: their beautiful daughters. He learned that Lord Kavros was married. He learned that the head of House Vethros was known to kill anyone who dishonored his daughters. The next morning, Do-yun asked to speak with the princess. "I found something," he said, holding out the ring. "I believe it belongs to Lord Kavros. I thought you might want to return it to him personally, Your Highness, perhaps in front of his wife and the head of House Vethros." Princess Ileana took the ring. She examined it. Understanding dawned in her purple eyes. "Where did you find this, human?" "It fell from his pocket, Your Highness, when he spilled tea on me." The princess was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was a real smile, not the cold one she usually wore. "You are more clever than you look, Park Do-yun." "Thank you, Your Highness." That was not entirely a compliment, but she was still smiling. "I will handle Lord Kavros. You may go." Do-yun bowed and left. 3 days later, Lord Kavros was gone from the ship. Rumors said he had been sent home in disgrace. Rumors said House Vethros was demanding his head. Rumors said his wife had tried to kill him herself. Do-yun did not know what was true. He did not care. Kavros was gone, and that was enough. The other nobles noticed. They still looked at Do-yun like he was dirt, but now they looked at him carefully, like dirt that might be hiding something dangerous. Princess Ileana began speaking to him more often. "You did not complain when Kavros burned you," she said one evening. "Why?" "Complaining would not have helped. Most humans would have cried, would have begged, would have tried to fight. Fighting would have gotten me killed. Crying would have made him happy." Do-yun shrugged. "I wanted to hurt him, so I waited for a chance to hurt him. That is not what I expected from a human. What did you expect? Weakness, emotion, stupidity." "Humans are all of those things," Do-hyun admitted, "but we are also patient. We know how to wait. We know how to remember." Ileana studied him with those purple star eyes. "You are angry at me." It was not a question. "Yes," Do-hyun said. There was no point in lying. "I took you from your home, your family, your life. Yes. And yet you served me without complaint. Complaining would not help. You could try to escape. Where would I go? We are in space. And even if I reached Earth, you would just take me again." Do-yun met her eyes. "I am not stupid, Your Highness. I know I am trapped. So I will wait. I will learn. And when I see a chance to make things better, I will take it." "Make things better for yourself?" "Maybe. Or maybe just make things worse for people who deserve it." Princess Ileana laughed. This time it was warm, almost surprised. "I begin to understand why humans have survived this long," she said. "You are like small insects that bite in the dark. Annoying, persistent, impossible to fully destroy. We prefer to think of ourselves as survivors." "Same thing." The princess turned away. "You may go, Park Do-yun. But know this. I am watching you now. I want to see what else you can do." Do-hyun bowed and left. That night he lay in his closet room and thought about what she had said. He thought about his grandmother, who had worked 18 hours a day in a factory so her children could eat. He thought about his grandfather, who had survived a war by eating bark from trees and drinking rainwater. Humans were survivors. That was true. But they were also something else. They were stubborn. And stubbornness, Do-Yun was beginning to learn, might be the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The space station hung in the darkness between stars like a metal flower. Do-Hyun had never imagined he would see such a thing, a place where 1,000 different species came to trade, to talk, to make deals that could change the fate of entire worlds. The station was called Nexus Prime, and it was neutral ground. No empire ruled here. No laws applied except the laws of commerce. Princess Ileana had been summoned to negotiate with the Kreth hegemony. The Kreth were a militaristic race of insectoid beings. They had 6 arms, compound eyes like black mirrors, and mandibles that could cut through steel. They believed in strength above all things. They thought the Valari were soft, weak, ripe for conquest. Do-Yun walked 3 steps behind the princess as she entered the negotiation chamber. He wore the simple gray clothes of a servant. He carried her documents. He was invisible, or he should have been. The Kreth ambassador was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in hard brown shell. His name was Rex, and he was known throughout the galaxy as a brutal warrior who had never lost a battle. He sat across from Princess Ileana like a monster waiting to pounce. The negotiations were complicated: trade routes, border disputes, resource rights. Do-Yun did not understand most of it. He simply stood and waited and tried not to attract attention. But attention found him anyway. During a break in the talks, Ambassador Rex turned his huge head toward Do-Yun. His compound eyes reflected 1,000 tiny images of the human. "What is that?" Rex asked, his voice like grinding rocks. "My attendant," Princess Ileana replied smoothly. "A human." "Human!" Rex made a sound like laughing. "I have heard of humans. The short-lived ones. The weak ones. The ones who die if you look at them too hard." The Kreth delegation laughed. The Valari delegation shifted uncomfortably. "They are an interesting species," Ileana said. "They are prey." Rex stood and walked toward Do-Yun. He was so large that Do-Yun had to crane his neck to see his face. "Little creature, do you know what the Kreth do to prey?" Do-Yun's heart was pounding. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he stayed still. "I imagine you eat them," he said. Silence. Then Rex made that grinding laugh again. "It speaks! The prey speaks!" He turned to his delegation. "It has courage, at least. Stupid courage, but courage." "Ambassador," Ileana said carefully, "perhaps we should return to the negotiations." "Perhaps," Rex agreed. "But first I want to test this human. We Kreth have a tradition. The stare of dominance. 2 opponents lock eyes. Neither may look away. The first to break loses. The loser dies." The chamber went cold. "Ambassador, that is not necessary," Ileana said. "I think it is. I want to see what these humans are made of. If your pet can win, I will give you favorable terms in our negotiations. If he loses..." Rex clicked his mandibles. "Well, you will need a new pet." Do-Yun understood what was happening. This was a trap. The Kreth had compound eyes. They did not need to blink. No species had ever beaten them at this contest. Rex was going to humiliate the Valari and kill a human for sport. "I will do it," Do-Hyun said. Everyone turned to look at him. "Human, be silent," Ileana hissed. "Your Highness, with respect. This is my choice." Do-Hyun stepped forward. "Ambassador Rex, I accept your challenge." Rex looked delighted. "Excellent. A brave little prey animal. This will be entertaining." They sat across from each other at a small table. The room arranged itself around them like an audience at an execution, because that is what this was, an execution with extra steps. "The rules are simple," Rex said. "We stare. We do not look away. We do not close our eyes. The first to break loses and dies." "I understand. Do you? Your species blinks every few seconds. Your eyes will dry. They will burn. You will want to close them more than you want to breathe, and you will fail." Do-Yun did not respond. He simply looked into those compound eyes and began. The first hour was easy. Do-Yun focused on a single point in the ambassador's eyes and let his mind wander. He thought about his mother's cooking. He thought about the sound of rain on his apartment window. He thought about small, comfortable things. The second hour was harder. His eyes began to itch, then burn. He wanted to blink more than he had ever wanted anything, but he did not blink. The third hour was agony. Tears streamed down his face. His vision blurred. He could barely see Rex anymore, just a brown shape in front of him. But he did not look away. The fourth hour, the fifth, the sixth. Do-Yun was no longer thinking about comfortable things. He was thinking about survival. He was thinking about his grandmother, who had worked until her fingers bled. He was thinking about his grandfather, who had walked through fire and snow and did not die. He was thinking about every human who had ever refused to quit when the universe told them to. His eyes were on fire. His body screamed at him to stop. His mind told him this was impossible. But Do-Yun had something the Kreth did not understand. Humans were not strong. Humans were not fast. Humans did not live long. But humans had one ability that no other species could match. Humans were too stupid to know when they had lost. Rex shifted. His mandibles clicked. For the first time, something like uncertainty appeared in those compound eyes. "How are you doing this?" he demanded. Do-Yun did not answer. He could not answer. All of his energy was focused on one thing, not looking away. The seventh hour began. Rex made a sound no one had heard before, a sound of frustration, of disbelief. His compound eyes, which had never needed to rest, were beginning to hurt. He had never stared at anything for this long. He had never needed to. And then, in the middle of the seventh hour, Ambassador Rex of the Kreth hegemony looked away. The chamber erupted. Kreth warriors shouted in disbelief. Valari nobles gasped. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of it breaking was the only clear thing in the chaos. Do-Yun slumped in his chair. His eyes were swollen nearly shut. Tears and blood mixed on his cheeks. He could barely see, barely think, barely breathe. But he had won. Rex stood slowly. He walked around the table and stood over Do-Hyun like a mountain of shell and rage. For a moment, everyone thought he would kill the human anyway. Then Rex laughed. It was not the mocking laugh from before. It was something else. Something like respect. "Little prey animal," he said. "You have taught me something today. I thought humans were nothing. I was wrong." He turned to Princess Ileana. "Your terms are accepted. All of them. This human has earned it." He reached down and touched Do-Hyun's shoulder with one massive claw. Gently, almost kindly. "The Kreth will remember this. We will remember you." Do-Hyun managed to nod. He could not speak. Everything hurt. Later, after the Kreth had left and doctors had treated his eyes, Princess Ileana came to see him. He lay in a medical bed, bandages covering half his face, exhausted beyond anything he had ever known. "You should not have done that," she said. "Probably not. You could have died. Probably would have. Then why?" Do-Yun thought about the question. He thought about the way Rex had looked at him, the way the Kreth had dismissed him as prey, the way everyone in the galaxy looked at humans like they were nothing. "Because someone needed to show them," he said finally. "Humans are not prey. We are not weak. We are just different, and different is not the same as less." Ileana was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out and touched his hand. Her silver skin was cool against his. "What are humans?" she asked softly. Do-Hyun smiled, even though it hurt. "We're just too stubborn to know when we've lost." That night, news of the contest spread across the galaxy. A human had defeated a Kreth in their own ritual. A species everyone considered primitive had shown strength no one expected. The universe began to pay attention to Earth. And Park Do-Yun, tired accountant from Seoul, slept for 14 hours straight while history changed around him. The Valari homeworld was called Ethon, and it was the most beautiful place Do-Yun had ever seen. Crystal towers rose into a purple sky. Gardens floated in the air, held up by nothing visible. Rivers flowed upward instead of down, defying gravity with casual ease. Everything glowed with soft light, even at night. There was no darkness here. There was no ugliness. Everything was perfect. Do-Yun hated it immediately. Perfection was exhausting. Perfection meant that every flaw stood out like a wound. And here, on this perfect world, Do-Hyun was the biggest flaw of all. A human, a short-lived creature, a stain on the pristine landscape. The emperor had summoned all members of the royal family for the Festival of Eternal Stars. It happened once every 100 years. All Velari were expected to attend. Princess Ilyana had no choice but to go, and Do-yun had no choice but to follow. The imperial palace was a mountain of crystal that touched the clouds. Inside, thousands of Velari nobles gathered in halls so large that birds flew beneath the ceilings. Servants moved like ghosts, silent and perfect. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small. Do-hyun felt very small indeed. He met the rest of the royal family on the first day. Crown Princess Valith was tall even by Valerie standards, with hair like spun gold and a smile that never reached her eyes. She looked at Do-hyun the way one might look at an interesting insect. "So this is the human," she said, "the one who defeated the Kreth. I expected something more impressive." "I apologize for disappointing you," Do-hyun replied. "Oh, it speaks. How delightful." Valith laughed and walked away. Prince Thalric was younger than his sisters, with silver skin that had a blue tint and eyes that never stopped moving. He was a scientist, Do-hyun had been told, a collector of rare specimens. "I would very much like to examine you," Thalric said, circling Do-hyun like a buyer at a market. "Your biology is fascinating, so fragile, so temporary. I wonder what makes you function." "I breathe and eat mostly. I mean internally. I could learn much by opening you up." "I prefer to stay closed, thank you." Thalric frowned but said nothing more. And then there was the emperor himself. Do-hyun had expected a god, a being of impossible power and ancient wisdom. Instead, he found an old man. The emperor was Velari, yes, with silver skin and purple eyes. But he was tired, worn. The weight of 3,000 years showed in every line of his face. The emperor did not speak to Do-hyun at all. He looked through him like he was not there. Like humans were so far beneath his notice that acknowledging one would be an insult to his own dignity. Do-hyun was used to being ignored. He told himself it did not hurt. But the worst was Lord Macon. Macon was a warlord. His family had conquered 17 worlds before joining the Empire. He was massive for a Velari, with dark silver skin covered in scars and eyes like black holes. He radiated violence the way a fire radiates heat. He was also the man Ilyana had been promised to marry. "My dear princess," Macon said when they met in the Great Hall. His voice was smooth, cultured, completely at odds with his brutal appearance. "You look as beautiful as ever. I have missed you." "Lord Macon." Ilyana's voice was ice. "I did not expect to see you here. Where else would I be? The Festival of Eternal Stars. A celebration of our empire's glory, and soon a celebration of our union." "There will be no union." Macon smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "The emperor disagrees, as does the council, as do all who matter. Your little rebellion has amused everyone, Ilyana. But it is time to accept reality. You will be my wife. It is already decided." He reached out and touched her face. Ilyana did not move, but Do-hyun saw her hands clench at her sides. "Do not touch me," she said quietly. "I will touch what belongs to me." Macon's eyes moved to Do-hyun. "And this is the pet human, the one who defeated the Kreth." He stepped closer, and Do-hyun forced himself not to back away. "I heard about your little staring contest. Very impressive. For a primitive." "Thank you. Do you know what I do to primitives who impress me?" "I imagine you tell me in great detail." Macon laughed. "Oh, I like this one. He has spirit. Spirit is fun to break." He leaned in close enough that Do-hyun could smell him, something like copper and old blood. "When Ilyana is mine, you will be mine too. And I will show you things, little human. I will make you scream in ways you cannot imagine." He stepped back, still smiling, and walked away. Do-hyun's heart was pounding. His hands were shaking, but he kept his face calm. That night he did research. The palace library was vast, but it was not forbidden to him. He searched through records, through news archives, through anything he could find about Lord Macon. What he found made his blood cold. Macon had been married 3 times before. His first wife had died in a tragic accident. His second wife had died from a sudden illness. His third wife had died by her own hand. 3 wives, 3 deaths, no investigations, no consequences. Because Macon was powerful, because his family was important, because the empire valued strength above justice. Do-yun understood now why Ilyana had refused the marriage, why she had been exiled to Earth, why she accepted her punishment without complaint. She was not being stubborn. She was not being rebellious. She was trying to survive. The next day during a garden party, Macon cornered Ilyana alone. Do-yun saw it happen from across the flower beds. He saw the fear in Ilyana's eyes hidden behind her cold mask. He saw Macon touch her again, his hand on her arm, squeezing. Do-yun did not think. He walked across the garden and put himself between them. "Excuse me, Your Highness," and he said. "You asked me to remind you about your appointment." "There is no appointment," Macon growled. "Remove yourself, human." "I'm sorry, my lord, but the princess has obligations." Macon stared at him. No one spoke to Lord Macon this way. No one, and certainly not a human slave. The air between them grew heavy with threat. "Do you know what you are doing, little creature?" "I'm doing my job. I serve the princess." "You are interfering with matters beyond your understanding." "Possibly, but the princess has an appointment." Do-yun met those black hole eyes without flinching. "And I take my duties seriously." For a long moment, Do-yun was certain he was going to die. Macon could kill him with a thought, could crush him like an insect. No one would stop him. No one would care. Then Macon laughed. "Spirit," he said. "Such wonderful spirit. You will scream beautifully, little human, when the time comes." He turned to Ilyana. "We will continue this conversation later, my dear, when your pet is not in the way." He walked away and Do-yun let himself breathe again. Ilyana grabbed his arm and pulled him into a private alcove. "What were you thinking?" she hissed. "He could have killed you." "Yes, he would have killed you slowly, painfully, for fun, probably." "Then why did you do it?" Do-yun looked at her. This cold, perfect princess who had taken him from his home, who had made him a slave, who had watched him suffer without lifting a finger. "Because you were scared," he said simply, "and someone should have stood up for you a long time ago." Ilyana stared at him. Her perfect composure cracked just for a moment. Something human appeared in those alien eyes, something vulnerable. "You stupid, stupid human," she whispered. "Yes," Do-yun agreed, "I know." But she did not let go of his arm. And when she finally did, Do-yun thought he saw something new in her expression, something like hope. The festival of eternal stars ended with a ceremony in the Great Hall of Light. 10,000 Valerie gathered under a ceiling made of captured starlight. Music played from instruments that had no visible players. Food and drink floated through the air on invisible trays. The emperor sat on his throne at the far end of the hall, surrounded by his children and his guards and his endless power. Do-yun stood in the shadows near the back, watching. He had learned to watch carefully in his months with the Valari. He had learned to notice things that others missed, the way servants moved, the patterns in the crowd, the small details that did not fit. Tonight something was wrong. He could not say what, just a feeling, a tightness in his chest, the sense that danger was coming, but he could not see from where. The ceremony began. The emperor spoke about the glory of the Valari Empire, about their 1,000 generations of greatness, about the eternal light that would guide them forever. The crowd cheered and applauded at all the right moments. Do-yun kept watching. He noticed that some of the guards were standing in strange positions, not quite where they should be. He noticed that Lord Macon was smiling, a real smile, not his usual predator's grin. He noticed that several servants had disappeared from their post, and then he noticed the weapons. They were hidden under decorative cloths near the emperor's throne. Old weapons, primitive weapons, the kind of weapons that humans used, guns. Do-yun's blood went cold. He pushed through the crowd, trying to get closer, trying to see more clearly. The ceremony continued around him, but he was no longer listening. He was trying to understand what was happening. And then he did. The weapons were human. The placement was perfect for an assassination. And if the emperor was killed by human weapons, with human evidence, the galaxy would blame humanity. War would follow. Billions would die. And in the chaos, someone would seize power. Someone like Lord Macon. Do-yun had minutes to act, maybe less. He could not go to the guards. They would not listen to a human slave. He could not go to Ileana. She was standing with her family, far away and surrounded by security. He could not stop this through normal means, so he would have to try something stupid. The palace had a broadcast system. Every noble family had one. It connected to screens throughout the empire, used for announcements and celebrations. If Do-hyun could access it, if he could find proof and show everyone at once, he ran. The palace corridors blurred around him. He remembered the map he had studied during his research. The communications center was on the third level, west wing, behind a door that was not heavily guarded because no one expected a human to know where it was. He reached the door. It was locked with a genetic scanner. Valari technology, impossible for a human to bypass. Or it should have been. Do-hyun had learned something in his weeks of being invisible. The Valari were arrogant. They did not consider humans a threat. They did not build their security systems to keep humans out. He pulled out a piece of paper. On it was a genetic code he had copied from a discarded medical document. He pressed it against the scanner. Nothing happened. Of course, paper was not the same as actual genetic material. Stupid plan, stupid human. But then Do-hyun remembered something. When Lord Kavros had burned him with tea, some of the liquid had mixed with Valari blood. Kavros had cut himself slightly on a cup. The stain was still on Do-hyun's old servant clothes, which he had hidden in his room instead of destroying. He did not have those clothes, but he had something else. Princess Ileana had touched his hand, back in the medical bay. Her skin had brushed against his, and Valari left genetic traces in their touch. Traces that lasted for days. Do-hyun pressed his hand against the scanner. The door opened. He did not stop to celebrate. He ran to the main console and began searching through Macon's communications. The Valari did not encrypt messages from nobles. Why would they? No one would dare spy on them. He found it in minutes, messages between Macon and his conspirators. Purchase orders for the replica human weapons, instructions for the assassins, the synthetic DNA that would be planted at the scene, everything he needed to expose the coup. Do-hyun sent it all to the broadcast system. Every screen in the palace, every screen on the planet, every screen in the empire. Then he ran back toward the Great Hall. He was too late to stop the attack, but maybe he could change what happened next. The assassins struck as Do-hyun pushed through the crowd. Energy weapons fired from hidden positions. Guards shouted. Nobles screamed. The emperor fell from his throne, wounded but not dead. And on every screen in the Great Hall, Lord Macon's conspiracy played out for everyone to see. The chaos was absolute. Macon screamed orders that no one followed. His guards tried to protect him, but the royal guards were already moving. Other nobles pointed and shouted. Someone tackled Macon to the ground. Do-hyun did not see any of this clearly. He was running toward the throne, toward the wounded emperor, toward Ileana, who was kneeling beside her father with panic in her eyes. A guard saw him coming and fired. The plasma bolt hit Do-hyun in the side. He stumbled but did not fall. The pain was incredible, worse than anything he had ever felt. But he had felt pain before. He had survived pain before. He reached the emperor's side and collapsed. "The weapons," he gasped. "The evidence. It's all fake. Macon planned everything." Ileana was staring at him. Her silver skin was spattered with her father's purple blood. Her eyes were wide with shock. "You're hurt," she said. "I know. Did it work? Did everyone see?" "Yes." Ileana's voice cracked. "Yes, everyone saw. But you're hurt. You're bleeding. Humans can die from wounds like this. Humans can die from lots of things." Do-hyun tried to smile. It came out as a grimace. "Did I save him? The emperor? He's wounded but alive. Because of you." "Good." Do-hyun's vision was getting dark around the edges. "That's good." Guards surrounded them. Medical drones descended from the ceiling. Someone was shouting orders. The chaos continued, but it felt far away now. Ileana held Do-hyun's hand. Her silver fingers wrapped around his blood-stained human ones. "Stay awake," she said. "That's an order. Your princess commands you to stay awake." "Trying. Try harder." "You know," Do-hyun whispered, "this is the nicest you've ever been to me. Be quiet. I think I'll take a nap now." "No, no naps. Humans don't nap when they're bleeding." Just a small one. Park Do-hyun. If you die, I will never forgive you. Do-hyun wanted to reply. He wanted to tell her that it was okay, that he had done what he needed to do, that for the first time since she took him from Earth, he felt like he had a purpose. But the darkness was warm and soft and tired. So instead, he closed his eyes and let it take him. The last thing he heard was Ileana screaming for doctors. The last thing he felt was her hand holding his. And somewhere, in the chaos of a failed coup and a wounded empire, a human accountant from Seoul slipped into unconsciousness, not knowing if he would ever wake up again. But the universe had seen what he did, and the universe would remember. Do-hyun woke up in a bed made of clouds. At least that was what it felt like. The mattress was so soft that he seemed to float on nothing. The sheets were warm without being heavy. The air smelled like flowers he could not name. He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling painted with stars. "You're awake." He turned his head. Princess Ileana sat beside his bed in a simple chair. She looked different than he had ever seen her. Her royal robes were gone, replaced by plain clothes. Her hair was loose instead of perfectly arranged. She looked tired. She looked almost human. "How long?" Do-hyun's voice came out rough, like gravel. "1 month. Your wound was severe. Human bodies are fragile. The doctors were not sure you would survive. But I did." "Yes, you did." Ileana reached out and touched his hand. Her silver fingers were warm. "You stupid, impossible human. You almost died." "Almost doesn't count." She laughed. It was a real laugh without the coldness he was used to. "No, I suppose it doesn't." Do-hyun tried to sit up. Pain flared in his side and he fell back with a groan. "Don't move. You're still healing." Ileana pressed a button and the bed tilted up slowly. "Better?" "Better." Do-hyun looked around the room. It was beautiful, like everything on Ethan. But it was also private, small. "Where am I?" "The Imperial Medical Wing. The finest care in the Empire." Ileana's expression shifted. "You're something of a celebrity now. The human who saved the Emperor. The primitive who exposed a warlord's coup. Every news outlet in the galaxy has been telling your story. I just wanted to stop the assassination. You did more than that. You changed how the galaxy sees humanity." She paused. "My father wants to speak with you. When you're strong enough." "The Emperor?" Do-hyun felt a spike of fear. "Am I in trouble?" "Quite the opposite." 2 weeks later, Do-hyun stood in the Emperor's private chambers. They were not what he expected. No throne of gold or walls of crystal. Just a simple room with windows that looked out over Ethan's floating gardens. The Emperor sat in an ordinary chair, dressed in ordinary clothes, looking like nothing more than a tired old man. "Come closer," the Emperor said. His voice was soft but carried weight. "I want to see you properly." Do-hyun walked forward. He was still weak, still leaning on a cane, but he would not appear before an emperor in a wheelchair. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. "I have ruled this empire for 3,000 years, he said finally. "I have watched species rise and fall. I have seen civilizations burn and others bloom. I have met every kind of creature the universe has to offer." He leaned forward. "And in all that time, I have never seen anything quite like you." "I'm just a human, Your Majesty." "Yes, that is precisely what makes you remarkable." The Emperor gestured to a chair. "Sit. You'll fall over if you stand much longer." Do-hyun sat. His legs were grateful. "Do you know what you did?" the Emperor asked. "Not just the mechanics of it, the meaning of it. You, a human, a member of a species we barely considered intelligent. You uncovered a conspiracy that our own intelligence services missed. You found evidence that our most advanced technology could not trace. You saved my life using nothing but your stubbornness and your primitive human brain. I was in the right place at the right time. No, you were paying attention when no one else was, because everyone else dismissed you, because no one thought you were a threat." The Emperor smiled thinly. "That is a powerful advantage, human, the ability to be underestimated." Do-hyun said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I owe you a debt," the Emperor continued, "my life, my throne, the stability of my empire. Name your reward, anything you want. Wealth beyond counting, a planet of your own, a position in my court. Name it, and it is yours." Do-yoon had thought about this moment during his recovery. He had thought about what he would ask for. Money, power, freedom, all the things a desperate man might want. But he was not a desperate man anymore. He was something else. 3 things, he said. I want 3 things. Name them. First, I want my freedom. I want to stop being a slave. Granted, you are free from this moment. Second, I want an alliance between Earth and the Valari Empire. A real alliance, with humans treated as equals, not primitives, not pets. Equals. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. That is a significant diplomatic concession. Humans earned it. I earned it. True? The Emperor nodded slowly. Very well. It will take time to negotiate the details. But I agree in principle. Humanity will be treated as equals. What is your third request? Do-yoon took a breath. This was the hardest one. Princess Ilyana, I want to promise that she will never be forced into marriage. Not to Lord Macon. Not to anyone. She should be able to choose her own fate. The Emperor went still, his ancient eyes fixed on Do-hyun with new intensity. 2 of your requests are political, he said softly. The third is personal. You care for my daughter. Yes. She is not human. She will live for thousands of years. You will live for perhaps 50 more, if you are lucky. You will grow old while she stays young. You will wither and die, and she will watch it happen. That is not a gift, human. That is a curse. I know. And you still ask for this. I'm not asking for her to love me. I'm not asking for anything from her at all. I'm asking that she gets to choose. That's all. Just the freedom to choose. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Do-hyun's heart pounded in his chest. He had risked everything on this moment. If the Emperor said no, if he was angry. You are a strange creature, Park Do-hyun. The Emperor's voice was thoughtful. You ask for your own freedom, which is logical. You ask for your species to be respected, which is noble. And you ask for my daughter's happiness, which is, he paused, which is something I have not considered in a very long time. Your Majesty, I am an emperor. I think in terms of empires, alliances, power. I forgot that my daughter is also a person, that she has fears and hopes and dreams that have nothing to do with politics. He looked at Do-hyun with something like gratitude. You reminded me of that. So you agree? I agree. Ilyana will not be forced into marriage. She will choose her own path. The Emperor stood. Your requests are granted, all 3. But I have a warning for you, human. Yes, Your Majesty? My daughter is complicated. She has been hurt by this court, by expectations, by people who saw her only as a tool. If you pursue her, do so carefully, do so honestly, or I will destroy you myself, alliance or no alliance. Do-hyun stood. I understand. Do you? Do you truly understand what you're getting into? No, Do-hyun admitted. But I never have. I'm human. We figure things out as we go. The Emperor laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and surprised. I begin to see why my daughter is interested in you, he said. Go, Park Do-hyun. Go and begin your new life. Whatever form it takes. Do-hyun bowed and left the chambers. In the hallway outside, Ilyana was waiting. You asked for my freedom, she said. Her voice was strange, soft. I asked that you get to choose. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Do-hyun met her eyes, those purple stars that had frightened him once, that had annoyed him, that had slowly, impossibly become beautiful to him. You don't owe me anything, princess. I didn't do it for that. I did it because it was right. And the alliance? The equality for humans? That was also right. And your own freedom? That was right too? That one was a little selfish. Ilyana stepped closer. She was so tall that she had to look down at him. But somehow in this moment, they felt equal. What are you going to do now? She asked. I don't know. Go home maybe, see my mother. She's probably worried. And after that? I haven't thought that far ahead. Ilyana reached out and took his hand. Her silver fingers intertwined with his human ones. Maybe, she said slowly, you should think about it. Do-hyun looked at their joined hands. Human and Valari, mortal and immortal, short-lived and eternal. Maybe I will, he said. And for the first time since this whole strange journey began, Park Do-hyun felt something he had forgotten how to feel. He felt hope. 6 months later, Park Do-hyun opened a restaurant. It was a small place in his hometown, just outside Seoul. Nothing special, 20 seats, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, walls that needed painting and floors that creaked when you walked. He called it Grandmother's Kitchen. The menu was simple: kimchi jjigae, doenjang stew, rice and side dishes, the kind of food that office workers ate when they had 30 minutes for lunch and not enough money for anything fancy. Do-hyun cooked every meal himself, using recipes his grandmother had taught him before she died. He woke early to prepare ingredients. He stayed late to clean. He worked harder than he had ever worked in his life, and he was happy. His mother visited every week. She fussed over him, told him he was too skinny, tried to introduce him to nice girls from her neighborhood. Do-hyun smiled and nodded and let her believe that someday he might settle down with a normal human woman. He did not tell her about Ilyana. He did not know how. The world had changed in the 6 months since the coup. The alliance between Earth and the Valari Empire was official now. Human ambassadors walked the halls of the Imperial Palace. Valari scholars visited Earth's universities. Trade ships crossed the stars. Humans were no longer primitives in the eyes of the galaxy. They were partners, equals. And Park Do-hyun, the man who made it happen, sold soup to tired workers and tried to remember how to live a normal life. The news still talked about him sometimes. The human hero, the man who saved an empire. They wanted interviews, documentaries, book deals. Someone offered him millions to be the face of a clothing brand. Someone else wanted him to run for political office. Do-hyun turned them all down. Why? His friend Jisoo asked one evening, helping him clean the restaurant after closing. You could be rich, famous, powerful. Why are you making stew for minimum wage? Do-hyun scrubbed a pot and thought about the question. Because this is real, he said finally. The other stuff, the fame, the money, the power, that's all just noise. This is real. This pot, this food, this restaurant, I can touch it, I can understand it. And when someone eats my grandmother's kimchi jjigae and smiles, I know I did something good. Jisoo shook her head. You're crazy. Probably. The craziest person I know. That's fair. But Jisoo was smiling, and so was Do-hyun. One evening near closing time, a woman walked through the door. She was tall, wearing a simple dress and a hat that covered most of her face. She walked like someone who was not used to hiding, someone who was trying very hard to look ordinary and not quite succeeding. Do-hyun's heart stopped. She sat at the counter, the only customer left in the restaurant. She took off her hat, and silver skin glowed in the evening light. Purple eyes met brown. Hello, Park Do-hyun, Princess Ilyana said. Your Highness, I told you to call me Ilyana. I wasn't sure if that was still allowed. Why wouldn't it be? Do-hyun gestured vaguely at everything. The small restaurant, his stained apron, the pot of soup bubbling on the stove. You're a princess. I'm a cook. I was a princess. Ilyana folded her hands on the counter. I resigned my position 3 days ago. I am no longer third in line for the throne. Do-hyun stared at her. What? You heard me? But why? Your family, your empire, everything you've worked for. Everything I worked for? Ilyana laughed softly. I never worked for any of it, Do-hyun. I was born into it. It was a cage made of crystal and gold, but it was still a cage. I spent my whole life being what others needed me to be. A princess, a political tool, a prize to be won by the strongest warlord. And now I am free? She reached across the counter and touched his hand. A stubborn human taught me that freedom is worth more than any title. Do-hyun did not know what to say. His brain was not working. 6 months of trying to forget her, trying to move on, trying to be normal, and now she was here, in his restaurant, telling him she had given up everything. What are you going to do? He finally managed. I don't know. I've never had to decide for myself before. Ilyana looked around the small restaurant. This place is simple. Yes, primitive even. That's a little harsh. I meant it as a compliment. She smiled and it transformed her face, made her look young and uncertain and incredibly beautiful. I've never had kimchi jjigae. Is it good? Do-yun found himself moving to the stove. His hands knew what to do even when his brain did not. He ladled soup into a bowl, added rice, arranged side dishes on a tray, placed it all in front of her like an offering. Try it, he said. Ilyana picked up a spoon. She took a small bite, then a larger one, then another. Her eyes widened. This is... She paused, searching for words. This is delicious. Thank you. No, I mean truly delicious. I have eaten at the finest restaurants in the galaxy. I have tasted food prepared by master chefs who trained for centuries. And this simple soup, made by a human in a small kitchen, she looked at him with wonder. How is it so good? My grandmother's recipe. Love and patience and a little bit of spite. Spite? She always said the best food was made by people who had something to prove. Ilyana laughed and took another bite. They sat together as the evening grew dark. Do-yun closed the restaurant and turned off the main lights, leaving only the soft glow from the kitchen. They talked about everything and nothing. About his mother's matchmaking attempts, about the strange feeling of freedom, about what came next. I don't know how to be normal, Ilyana admitted. I don't know how to live without servants and schedules and expectations. Nobody knows how to be normal. We all just pretend. That doesn't help. It wasn't supposed to help. It was supposed to make you feel better. Do-yun poured her more tea. Look, I can't tell you how to live your life. I can barely figure out my own. But I can tell you this. You're here. You're free. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But what do I do tomorrow? Tomorrow? Do-hyun smiled. Tomorrow you wake up. You decide what you want for breakfast. You take a walk. You figure out what kind of life makes you happy, one small choice at a time. That sounds terrifying. That's because it is. Freedom is terrifying, but it's also wonderful. Ask any human. Outside, through the window, the night sky was full of stars. Somewhere up there, ships were being built. Human ships designed with Valari technology, ready to carry humanity into the galaxy for the first time. A new age was beginning, but here in this small restaurant, two people from different worlds sat together and shared a meal. And that, perhaps, was the most important thing of all. Do-yun, Ilyana said quietly. Yes? I think I would like to see you again. Tomorrow. And the day after that. And maybe many days after that. I would like that too. Even though I will outlive you by millennia? Even though I will watch you grow old and die while I stay young? Even then. Do-yun took her hand. Silver and brown. Alien and human. Temporary and eternal. Humans don't live for length. We live for depth. I would rather have 50 years of something real than 1,000 years of something empty. Ilyana squeezed his hand. You are a strange creature, Park Do-hyun. So I've been told. I think I love you. The words hung in the air like music. Do-hyun leaned across the counter and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, brief and soft, but it meant everything. I think I love you too, he said. 50 years later, Park Do-hyun died peacefully in his sleep. He was surrounded by family, his children, some human, some with silver skin and purple eyes, his grandchildren who carried the best of both species, and Ilyana, unchanged by time, holding his hand until the very end. His funeral was attended by delegates from 100 worlds. The Kreth sent a message of honor. The Emperor himself lit a memorial flame. Humans and aliens stood together and mourned a man who had changed the universe by bumping into a princess's chest. Ilyana gave the eulogy. People ask me what made him special, she said, how one ordinary man changed the relationship between our peoples. And I tell them the truth. He was not special. He was simply, completely, truly human. He was stubborn. He was kind. He refused to give up, even when everything told him to. And that was enough, she paused, looking at the stars. That was more than enough. In the front row, a child with silver skin and brown eyes placed a flower on her grandfather's grave. She was the first of a new generation, the first of many. The species that the galaxy had once dismissed as primitive apes had become something else entirely. They had become the ones who never gave up. They had become humanity, and humanity was just getting started. The end.